Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Flash Quotes podcast. The best, what does Daniel say? The best podcast for event businesses or something like that.
Maybe. Aspirational, but yes.
Yeah. We're manifesting that we are going to be the best podcast. Well, we might already be the best podcast for mobile event owners and operators because there's not that many podcasts serving you guys. So we're honored to be the ones to do it. Daniel, normal co-host, is still in Europe, vacationing and exploring Dubrovnik, where they filmed King's Landing of Game of Thrones. So just picture him just standing on the ramparts of the castle of the Red Keep. That's what he's doing right now. So in his stead, we have longtime Flash Quotes friend Steven Swank, co-founder of Canyons Coffee. How's it going, Steven?
Going well. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Steven, I'll let you tell your story, but I'll brag on him a little bit. It's operating an awesome coffee catering business and cafe now in Salt Lake City, Utah, or at least the metro area. I don't know if you're technically in Salt Lake, but he one of the very first people that we talked to back when Flash Quotes was little more than a dream and a vision and a slide deck, more or less. But he's come along the way. He's given us a ton of feedback. He's grown his business a ton. And I think maybe what's most interesting to some people is that he's actually achieved that dream of opening a coffee shop in addition to his catering business. We hear a lot of times, a very common story is, I wanted to start a coffee shop, but I couldn't, so I started catering, and now I just cater and I love it and I don't want to do that or don't want to do anything else. But you actually went the brick and mortar route as well. And so we're excited to hear about that decision and your business and how it's grown over the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the very first thing that I should say is I'll probably say we a lot, and that's just referencing me and my wife. So she's 100% in on this as well. It was actually her idea to start the coffee cart. She just hates speaking in front of people. And I asked, come on the podcast with me. And she was like, no, absolutely not. But yeah, so I always talk about it as we, because it's always been 100% both of us. Even if you don't mind, Zach, I might back up a little bit even before the coffee cart and just share how that came about. We got married really young, and my wife, I think within the first 6 months of marriage, she had a little business idea. We wouldn't have even called it that because we were just like, oh, this sounds fun. This sounds like a cool way to maybe make some money. And it was just selling these letterboards that she found. And that was our first kind of venture in being entrepreneurs. And we did 3 or 4 other things along the way. I started a web design business. That's really the only other thing that stuck around. But we moved to Salt Lake in 2019, like 3 months before COVID happened. Kind of just stuck it out through COVID. My wife, Maddie, she's been a barista now for almost 10 years. And so at that time, I guess in 2021, it had been at least 5 years. And so she had this dream of opening a coffee shop. But as you guys know, and probably a lot of people who are in the coffee world, it's just incredibly expensive to do so, really on almost any scale. And that's kind of what we started to realize. And somewhere that year, she had the idea to start a coffee cart. I don't know if she saw a couple online or something, but she kind of proposed that idea to me. And when we ran the numbers, we realized, okay, this is much more feasible. And so we spent the rest of that year preparing and figuring out, okay, how are we going to actually accomplish this? Like, we don't want to just talk about it. We want to actually do something about it. And so a really good friend encouraged us, like, hey, you might have people in your corner that want to support what you guys are doing, but not even necessarily from a investment standpoint. He was like, just do a GoFundMe and see if people are bought into what you guys want to do. Because we were really open that this whole dream was really to be involved in the community. It was more than just a way to make some money. So anyways, going into 2022, we raised about a third of the funds we needed, and then we put in the rest ourselves. I remember we were completely ready to go in the spring of 2022, and we were like, all right, let's do this thing. when are people going to book us? And then realizing like no one knows that we exist. People aren't just going to call us up and be like, hey, why don't you come serve our event? And that was kind of a scary wake up call. So I just started like spamming everyone possible. Like, hey, do you want a coffee cart at your event? And everyone ignored me. But the cool thing with like our first ever event, just the way it happened was I saw that the rock climbing World Cup was happening here in Salt Lake City. And I emailed somebody and they passed me off maybe 3 times until eventually I got to some intern who was like 19 years old. And she was like, yeah, the coffee sounds cool. Like, let's do it. And never sent any details or anything. And it was like 2 days before. And I'm like, I'm trying to fake like we've done this before. Like I know the questions that I'm supposed to be asking her. And I'm like, what time do you think we should get there? And like, where is it again? Like, where are we going to be? And so we get there and there were like 2,000 people. We were vending. That's actually probably the only event that we've ever vended because we learned immediately, like, this is not what we want to do. But yeah, we just faked it through 3 days of the Rock Climbing World Cup and everything like that could go wrong. I mean, it went incredibly well, but like all of those lessons that it would have been nice to learn over time, we learned in 3 days, like the power tripped and the machine can't handle 12-ounce drinks back to back. And like, why is the machine broken? We don't know what's going on. So yeah, that was like the craziest 3 days ever, but that kicked it off. We realized immediately that we had something that could potentially work. And I guess long story short, we continued that into 2023. And with some of the big events that we got, we were like, hey, we really have something going here. Maybe we can open a coffee shop sooner than we imagined. So in 2024, we opened this coffee shop where I am now. And I've heard Justin say before, like, I never want to open a coffee shop. And I think, from a financial standpoint, that is so accurate. Like the money for us at least has been in catering, but we just knew what we're passionate about long term. Like, can we see ourselves doing this for decades? With the coffee shop, we said yes. And with the coffee carts, I could see us doing it for a very long time, but I guess just the heart and the passion isn't the same in it. But yeah, we're still very much in the thick of it. And obviously there's a lot there that we can unpack, but yeah, we started 3 years ago and it's been a wild ride. And I feel like we have a lot of years to go before, I would say we're in a really good place, but it's been fun. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, a lot of questions I want to ask from that, but maybe before we dig into it, like, just, can you fast forward to where you're at now? Can you talk about like how the business has grown, what the catering side looks like as far as number of events, or what some of the big, kind of brag on yourself a little bit as far as where it is today in 2025?
Yeah, the first year we started in 2022, we might have done like 25 events, honestly, and then 2023 and 2024, and then probably what this year is looking like as well. We've been in like the 150 to 200 event range and really just focused on how can we do this sustainably and maximizing those events. So I think over time we'll grow certainly beyond that amount, but Salt Lake City is a bit of a unique market for coffee. And so I think, not that we're maxing it out by any means, but there's just not the demand you would imagine from this big of a metro area, because not everyone here drinks coffee for religious purposes. But yeah, maybe 200 events per year this year. And you asked about the coffee shop as well. Yeah, I guess it's been 18 months and we've really, I think, doubled since we opened. But as anyone in the coffee world knows, like, we probably need to double again to get to a good place, but I'm happy with the growth. And yeah, we just really try to focus on being sustainable over the long term and not burning ourselves out. It's been fun. We've worked with a lot of clients that we never imagined we would work with. Like, we just thought we would do some weddings and birthday parties or something. We really didn't know like what we were getting ourselves into. And along the way, like Adobe called, and Costco and LinkedIn, American Express, a lot of brands like that it's been super fun to work with. Yeah, people ask like, how did you do this? How did you get get these brands. It's like we never really set out to do that, but along the way, we did pivot a little bit when we realized, hey, there's a market here. We already had this black and white brand and kind of tan, as you can see, like behind me. And so we just leaned a little bit more luxury once we realized those companies were reaching out and like, hey, maybe we don't do 600 events a year, but if you want the best coffee experience in the state of Utah for your conference or for your company, like call us and we strongly believe we can make that happen. And so we kind of pivoted to that back in 2023 once we realized, hey, there's something going on here.
Cool. And what are man, I feel like in Utah you might have to have like a mobile soda cart add-on or something. Those are big in Utah, aren't they? Like all the soda shops and stuff.
The soda shops are huge. I'm literally looking at one right now across the street. There's a soda drive-through. Yeah, people ask, like, is that a real thing in Utah? It is. It's a real thing. It's huge. It's big business here. You can imagine like the margins are insane because you're just selling soda and syrup and then charging like $5 for it. We talked really early on, like, do we get into that or do we stay true to what it is that we actually enjoy? And my wife is all about specialty coffee. And it was like, yes, this city is behind other big cities in coffee, but we feel like if we just stick to it and say, hey, we do this incredibly well and we don't deviate from that, then it will pay off in the long term. We've done events where we look over and like there's a soda bar, like they booked us and they booked a soda bar as well.
Interesting. So people are doing the soda bars, mobile soda bars.
Yeah, as of very recently, like the first 2 years, I never saw that. And then I think last year, Swig, which is the biggest, they started kind of this revolution here in Utah. They opened like a catering branch of their business last year. And then I think other people followed. And now I'm starting to see it everywhere. And like I said, even at events that we're going to, I'll see that. And so I don't know. I doubt we'll get into that, but you never know what could happen. Maybe one day.
Yeah. I've heard that Utah has some of the highest per capita sugar consumption of any state in the US because of lack of like caffeine and, some of the things that drive people away from a lot of the common substances. I think they're going to sugar instead. And so
That's very true from everything that I've personally seen and then like read in terms of stats. That's definitely true. Cause yeah, people are looking for an alternative. Everyone wants that daily ritual. And if they can't get it through coffee, then they'll turn elsewhere. And yeah, there's some interesting rules behind coffee and tea here. So also like some people would consider matcha out of the picture. And so that's where soda is like a safe bet. And these places are open early, so you can still go. Like people will go.
wow.
I've seen tons of people at 6:30 in the morning on their way to work.
Oh,
Instead of
no way.
yeah,
No
instead of a
way.
run, it's a soda run, and that's
No way. That's
they call it.
crazy.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Can you take us back to how many carts and how many carts do you have now? You've already talked about the number of events you're doing, but yeah, what's the focus? Do you have staff that are going out and working events? Are you and your wife still working a bulk of the events? How does that look?
Yeah, so we have 2 carts. We actually got the second one maybe 7 months in to starting the business and really just to pull off a big event. And then it wasn't until about a year later we really started utilizing that second cart a lot. And so this year we kind of wait until we're forced to. So I almost had 3 simultaneous bookings last week, like big conferences. And so we were like, do we go to 3 carts? I think within the next year we'll do that. We do have staff. So with the coffee shop, we ask all of our baristas we hire them like, hey, you're going to work here, but you're also going to work events when we call on you to do that. Like, are you comfortable with that? Because that's not optional. That's just part of the job. And so we have 6 staff now, and we just hired a catering manager, and she's been amazing. So my wife doesn't go to a whole lot of events anymore. I still go to quite a few, but it was getting to the point where it was pretty unsustainable. And now I've been able to cut the amount that I'm going to in half, which has freed me up. So yeah, it's nice to see glimpses of like, okay, there's some daylight here, finally, because it's been several years of just like anytime someone books, it's me and my wife going.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted to ask some questions kind of back to getting off the ground. You mentioned that you raised some capital. Was that to get for the catering or for the shop later?
That was for the catering to get the coffee cart going. So we raised
Yeah.
third of the funds that we needed. Like our community just got behind us and said, yeah, this is awesome. I would have never thought to do that if it wasn't for a friend just suggesting it. And it also got a lot of people to buy in initially to what we were doing. And it was just really encouraging to see that happen. So yeah, that was back in 2022.
Gotcha. So was it, yeah, I was curious about the mechanics of that because it's one question we get a lot, like, what are the pros and cons and merits of just trying to bootstrap my side hustle thing and trying to save up for the coffee cart versus getting a small business loan versus, pitching an investor or something. So can you talk about this raise? Was it more like a GoFundMe type thing or was it actually, how did it work?
Yeah, so it was just a GoFundMe. It wasn't like even a Kickstarter where you promise like maybe even swag in return. We were just genuinely like asking friends and family in our community, do you want to contribute to this? And yeah, a lot of people got behind it. And we needed about, just to give like some practical numbers, if maybe that'll be helpful to some people, but without a vehicle. So this is like not, because we didn't get a van until much later. We just used our car, but we needed about, I think, K. And so about 5K of that came in through the GoFundMe. And then another 5K was from we saved over time. And then the other 5K was just like a credit card. And we felt that was, much more feasible starting out that way. And those numbers were much easier to stomach. Like, what if, you're thinking, what if this doesn't work out? What if everything goes wrong? Like, how much money are we going to lose? But that was also the scary piece with the GoFundMe, because like, what if people give and then 6 months later, we're like, hey guys, it didn't work out. But we were just encouraged, like, hey, just trust the process. And I think people want to get, so that was really cool to see our community do that.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a cool hack because and probably not a lot of people have thought about trying that if they're interested in starting up a business, but in my mind, it gives you a little bit of that motivation that you would get from like raising money from friends that, from like investors or something of like, hey, it's not just like, I can't just give up on this because I don't feel like doing it anymore. Like people are counting on me, like someone made a commitment and investment in me, like I need to show up for them. So you kind of get that motivation. Did you feel like that helped you in the early days when it was hard and you didn't have any customers and, you're trying to figure it out?
Yeah, there was definitely that piece of like, I don't want to disappoint anybody that's contributed to it. A little bit of similarity to like raising capital. There's people with eyes on this. And so I think the first 6 months or so, we would actually send out updates to the people that contributed and said, even basic stuff like we bought a new grinder, like we did this event at this office, and just even people seeing that, they're like, man, this is so cool. Getting to see like what's happening with the money that they contributed. And so, yeah, it was a little bit scary behind the scenes though, to think like, okay, I don't want to let anyone down. I think at the same time, other people said, hey, like if it doesn't work out, you're not effort into this. And when it became what it did, because we didn't know that, maybe I'll like jump to another little story here, but like when Justin initially reached out to me back in 2023, to be honest, like we were just so ignorant of the coffee cart like landscape in the US, and no one else was doing it here. And it's a huge city. And so we just kind of thought we were these like weirdos doing this coffee cart thing. And when it was starting to turn into something, I didn't realize that there were other people out there like that had already done this and were doing it way bigger and better than we were. And so that was kind of a shock to me to go from like, yeah, we're just telling some friends, let's do a GoFundMe, and then realizing, oh, there's a whole world of people out here doing this.
I mean, they're one of the earliest the two coffee carts that became, I guess, got on my radar was June from Welcome Coffee Cart in Santa Barbara, California. She was a very early one. The other one actually was in Salt Lake City. It was Three Pines Coffee Cart. And they were, in my mind, and in my research, kind of one of the OGs. I think they opened a cafe, and I don't know if they still do catering. I don't know, but they were definitely an inspiration to me way back then. I think when I started in 2017, they were one of the only ones around, I feel like.
Yeah, that's so crazy. I didn't know that. They have a spot downtown, and I actually just worked an event like today downtown a few hours ago. And anytime we're down there, people are like, are you going to be here tomorrow? If it's like a multi-day conference, and I'll be like, no, but if you're looking for good coffee, go to Three Pines on Main Street. Like that's my recommendation every time. So it's cool that you know them. They transitioned like to that space, and then as far as I'm aware, they never went back to their coffee cart. But
Yeah.
that's a wild connection. Yeah, they were one of the first ones when I researched as well. They were done with the coffee cart, but
Okay.
I went in and spoke with the owner, like about his experience with that. So yeah.
Interesting. So did that kind of help? I don't know, what did he have to say, or what did they have to say? I mean, I'm fascinated by that as like an early industry pioneer, almost like that kind of, I call it the second wave of coffee catering, which is different than the like third wave coffee. Like in my mind, the first wave of coffee catering is those folks who started in like the 90s, like the people that you probably don't even know their names. There's just a couple of them around the US that have been in the game like 15, 20, 30 years. That to me is kind of the first wave. The second wave is kind of the folks from Three Pines in June, who started, 8 to 10 plus, or had maybe started 10 or more years ago. And then I kind of consider, I don't know, I guess I was that next generation. Then we have a whole huge generation of coffee caterers starting now. I'm so curious if you remember that conversation. What was some of their perspective and advice?
Yeah, I was a little shocked because of course, my wife and I were super excited. Like, hey, we're going to start this coffee cart. What do you think? And my wife actually had met him before. I think he had come into the coffee shop where she worked, or there was some connection there. It was almost like a little bit deflating just because they had transitioned from the coffee cart to the coffee shop. And like a lot of people's stories, that was the goal and kind of the only goal.
Yeah.
And in their minds, it triggered like those days of so much work and like grinding in that season. And so I think they were trying to caution us like, hey, it's going to be really hard. Like it's, because we were just in that like almost honeymoon phase. Like this is so exciting.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think they were, to your point, kind of part of that second wave where it was maybe more of a way to accomplish the coffee shop goal. And to their credit, I tell people all the time, like, if you want the best coffee in Utah, go to Three Pines, especially if you're downtown. So they've done very well, but I don't think that they had aspirations to continue doing that. And I think from my understanding, it was mostly they would operate outside of a grocery store. So I don't think it was
Okay.
necessarily like catering at the time they were doing it.
Okay. Yeah, the vending is definitely much harder. What are some of the moments? I know you talked about the climbing World Cup, which is incredible. That was like a vending event. A lot of time has passed between then and now. What are some of the other challenges, or, I always love one of the just those moments of being in the trenches, and I think the listeners really love to hear those stories of like, I forgot the grinder. Like I was driving, an hour and a half across the border into Wyoming, and I looked back and I forgot my grinder, and I had to buy this $30 grinder from Target that sounded like a jet engine, and it took 20 seconds to grind every shot, and it was the worst shot you've ever had. Do you have some of those moments where those challenges, or things that came up, and how you problem solved and kind of navigated and powered through?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there is a lot of those moments. Like we like to think of ourselves as very organized, but even then, there's so many stories of goofing things up. So, like I think literally the second event that we ever did, which was our first true catering gig, we definitely didn't have any like checklists at that point because we were still figuring it all out. And we were so stressed out, like, how is this going to work? And are they going to like it? And we leave and we're like halfway there. Fortunately, it wasn't like crossing the state border like your story. It was like 25 minutes away. But we look back and we forgot the espresso machine, like the entire machine. And it's like it's in a case, like it's the biggest thing that we have.
Yeah.
in the cart itself. And that just goes to show like how stressed out we were. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like we have to go back and grab the machine and then go back. And then we get to the event and we had just bought a little utility cart to set our cooler on. And I don't remember not doing this, but I guess we forgot to screw the bolts in. So we pull it out, put the cooler on it, start to roll away, and all the wheels just fall off. And we're like, I was so mad that I just looked at my wife and I was like, because I knew it was probably my fault. I was like, just chuck it all back in the van and let's just carry, like, just grab stuff and just start carrying it. Like, forget this cart. And yeah, that was like day one. One of the worst ones that I ever remember was it was our second year at Sundance Film Festival, which is like usually the biggest thing of the year for us.
Mm.
And this one, to be fair, like wasn't our fault, but they showed us, hey, here's like where you're going to plug in. It has all the power that you need. And typically if you don't have the power, like the appropriate power, it just trips the breaker and you just realize right then and there. But this was an old building. And instead of tripping the breaker, our machine would power up, but it wouldn't pressurize. And so we were freaking out thinking that the machine was broken. I tried everything I knew to try, and we had a second machine. And so I remember calling my mom, and because it was in my parents' basement, and I was like, Mom, I need your help. But like, we're 45 minutes away. I'm like, can you bring the other machine? And so she's amazing. She, I think people were over at their house. They lifted it into the car for her. She drives up the mountain. And I run out there, grab the machine, and thanks, Mom, bye. And she, I see her for 2 seconds, plug the new machine in, and the exact same thing happens. So we've now waited like an hour. The client's waiting on us.
Yeah.
It's not working. So we realized like, oh my gosh, it's just this outlet that they gave us. And I have a long extension cord. So I realized there's an outlet 50 feet away in the other room. But there's a bench for maybe 40 feet of this wall with like 30 people sitting on the bench.
No.
Okay, so these are all VIPs, like very, very high-end experienced clientele. Some of them were actors that you would know. And I have to crawl on my hands and knees and ask each person and just excuse me as I drag the cord like behind their legs, and we get the cord all the way down to the end, plug it in, and the same thing happens again. And I'm like, I've just embarrassed myself in front of all of these people, and the power still does not work. Finally, we got another outlet and it all worked out. But like, again, that wasn't our fault. Like the power wasn't there, but it didn't make it any less embarrassing.
Yeah, well, and the thing about sometimes those facility issues is that like the event host may not really know about power and may not understand that and so even if it wasn't your fault, but they may still kind of feel like it is in some cases, and so it's still like it still reflects poorly on you, and or me, right, or anyone who's coffee catering. So yeah, those are tough. Those are tough circumstances. That's cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing those. I love those sorts of in the trench stories like that. Just because when people share them, I think sometimes people are embarrassed and like try to bury all of their worst challenges or these moments. But in reality, every single coffee caterer has them and has had them. And I think just being open about them, because like you got to deal with them. You either creative problem solving, and then you have to figure out how to deal with the client and make sure they're okay. And, do you give a refund, a credit? Do you extend service? These are all things that are going to happen, and navigating them, like it's impossible to be flawless, 100% flawless in a service business. That's not possible. But how you handle these challenges and kind of your poise and service and resolution of them after the fact, I think is really what makes or breaks you as a service business owner. Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah. I wanted to add, so maybe we can ask about a story that's more on the positive side, because I want to hear about like the moment when you guys decided to go full time. That's a common question that we get. I know, it's a big achievement, especially for a husband and wife business, to get to the point where the business can sustain them both. So tell us when that happened, how it happened, when you figured out like actually we can like go all in on canyons and this can be our livelihood.
Yeah. Yeah. So our first event was May of 2022. And then really it wasn't until that fall. So maybe like 5 or 6 months went by. We were doing a couple events here and there. That fall, we did a big multi-day marketing activation for an ice cream company that I'm not going to drop the name because like it didn't work out so great, but it did open this like door for us where we didn't even know what marketing activation meant at that time. And um, I think that might have been in October. And then in November, we started getting calls for Sundance Film Festival. And I think within a couple weeks, like 5 or 6 companies called. And over those couple of months, like leading up to Christmas, that's when we started to realize like, hey, people want this and people are willing to pay good money for this if you can do it well. And then Sundance happens in January. So I think really it was probably in January where we were like, okay, does Maddie need to transition out of her barista job that she has at a coffee shop? And fortunately, my web design business was like, I could make my own hours. So at that point, we were like, yeah, let's just go all in on this and take the risk. And so that would have been about 8 months into the journey for us.
Awesome.
That's awesome. And so you mentioned like you start getting phone calls from Sundance, and I'm sure like a lot of people listening to this are like, how do I get that phone? You make it sound so easy. So like, what did you learn in that first 8 months about how to market the business, how to get repeat customers, how to find who your ideal customers are, how to show up for them on the internet, whether that's through SEO or ads, or just talk us through kind of your lessons in getting found.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I have a background in digital marketing, like more specifically web design, but a little bit of SEO and social media and things like that. And so when we realized, hey, we're doing this for real, the moment that we decided that, which was probably 7 or 8 months before we even had our first event, right then and there, I like launched a basic website because I knew I want to get some SEO presence out there. And the sooner that I do that, the better because of the way that SEO works. And so started that as soon as possible. Fortunately, like that led to down the road getting calls from people filling out our form on our website. That didn't happen very frequently at first. So to answer your question, Zach, it was really those first 6 months were primarily just really like getting out there. I don't enjoy like hustle culture. I think it just leads to burnout and it's really not like healthy to promote that. But definitely the first 6 months, it was like, well, whatever we have to do. So I just took business cards and went into like some of the tech companies here in different offices. And I don't know that you're probably not supposed to do that. So I'm not going to like promote that, but I would go in and then as quickly as I could, I would just get the word coffee out before they could kick me out. And I'd be like, we do coffee, and everyone's like, oh, coffee, like everyone loves coffee. Right. And so a few of those companies, they were like, all right, tell us what you do. So yeah, it was just like some good old fashioned, like going into different companies, a lot of emailing and calling and trying to get any form of traction going. And it was like, I'll say manually built that traction the first 5 or 6 months, the SEO had built up enough of a presence to people started reaching out to us a little bit. And that is how these various companies that were coming to Sundance Film Festival, they were just searching like coffee catering in Salt Lake City. And we would come up first. And so we started getting all these calls. And that actually happens quite a bit because there's not as big of a market here. It's very common for us that groups coming to Salt Lake City from out of state that are used to coffee carts will look up Salt Lake City coffee carts and book us. And I guess on that note, I'll take a second to say, like, for all of you guys out there doing your coffee carts in your various cities, like you're helping to represent the industry as a whole. And I've noticed like a lot of our clients are like, I worked with this really great coffee cart in Denver or wherever, and that sets us up for success. At this, someone might say, I had a bad experience with these guys in California or whatever. And then it can lead to like right out of the gate, they're wondering, are you going to do well? And so just like a note of encouragement to the community as a whole, whenever we each do well in our respective cities, like that client might come to my city or your city, and we can set a good precedent for them if we put our best effort out there.
That's Steven, that is such a good point. I don't think anyone has kind of covered that aspect of it, but I see it all the time. I mean, because Goodheart, right, operates in multiple cities. I see all the brands roll through all the cities. They're hiring coffee carts in every city where they have a presence all across the US. And that is just so well said that then, yeah, these companies are traveling, hosting conventions in other cities. And I've never really thought about that kind of the collective responsibility of like, let's make coffee carts like have an amazing reputation to all of our vendors and clients around the US so that like instead of a mobile soda cart or a mobile bar, maybe they'll choose the mobile coffee because they've had great experiences at other events around the US. Like that's a really cool perspective. Thank you for highlighting that one. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think you also, thanks for sharing the hustle at the beginning. It's just important for people to hear. I think that the first 6 months of your business, if you're just getting started, is like the gauntlet, right? It's like okay, are you willing to just buckle down and make something happen out of nothing, and get this plane in the air basically with just your willpower. So we hear all kinds of, I love hearing the stories of what people do in that situation and how they get creative, like you're saying, with going in and just trying to give someone your card really quick in an office before you get kicked out. Or I've heard of people just like trying to find every like office administrator job title in their city and just cold outreaching to that person on LinkedIn, being like, hey, would you ever have coffee at your office? Or people throwing free coffee parties, people vending and doing farmers markets. It's all it's just kind of getting the flywheel going, and then hoping you can establish a brand, get some good reviews, get your Google up, and then it never gets easy, but I think it gets a little bit easier after that first kind of 0 to 1 moment of getting some customers, getting some events under your belt.
Yeah, 100%. I think you have to have that season of getting the momentum built up. And of course, like you said, Zach, you have to continue to push and maintain that momentum, but eventually it does get a little bit easier where you're not just stuck in this season of like, if I don't do something every day, this isn't going to work. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about flash quotes a little bit, because I was looking back through our email history. I mean, we reached out to you very early on and showed you like a very preliminary demo, and I think it wasn't quite what you were needing at the time. I think we circled back a little bit later and finally got you on the system. But I just want to hear about what were you doing before? How has flash quotes helped the business, and how do you use it today?
Yeah, before you guys reached out, I was just using a combination of a lot of different software. So we use like Google Workspace. So I had Google Docs and Google Sheets and Google Forms, like to get quotes. And we used Square for the invoices. And so it's kind of this thing we had hacked together to try and make a system that was as efficient as possible, but it still had its issues. And it felt like this slog to get the client through the process. Like, I need you to fill out this form, and now I need you to do this, and now I need you to do that. And I have to keep reaching out to people, let alone like the logistics that come with every event. We were manually kind of making our timeline and using Google Calendar, and we had our own checklists that we would go through just on like a Google Doc. And so when you guys reached out at the time, it was still just completely me and my wife. And it felt like, do I really need software like to do this at this time with how small we are? And I was definitely interested. I just didn't know if it was the right timing. And I remember, I think it was very early on in the stages of flash quotes, but you showed me the feature where it auto builds your timeline for you. And I was like almost crying. I was telling Justin, like, you've changed my life, like my wife's life. Like, we would literally be in bed at like 11 o'clock. And this is no exaggeration. Like, hey, babe, like, when do I set my alarm for tomorrow? And it's like, well, if it starts at 8, we need to leave at 7. So we need to start packing at 6:45, which means we need to get to the warehouse at 6:30, which means that we need to leave our house at this time, which means we need to wake up at this time. And then we would set the alarm on our phones and go to sleep. And I'm like, dude, we can't be doing this for forever. And so even with just that feature alone, I was like, okay, you guys, you've convinced me that like I need this. But to be honest, it probably wasn't for another year that I like logged back in to Flash Quotes. And when I logged in, you had added like quoting features and just like all of the core features that are there now. There was some form of them. And I remember literally telling my wife, like it was going into 2025. I was like, January 1st, we're going to switch everything to Flash Quotes completely. And like, this is going to change my life. And I wish she was on the podcast because she would tell you, like, she still tells people like, yeah, there's this software that Steven uses. It's like changed his life. Like he got so much. She'll tell people that all the time.
Wow. Wait, we gotta have her at least record like a voice memo of that.
Yeah, we could probably at least get that, but that's a true story. She tells people that all the time because me getting even 5, 10, 15 hours a week, depending on what season, if we're in like a busy season, getting that back in my life obviously affects her in a very significant way. And so she'll talk about it a lot as well, like how much it's helped us. And it's just reduced so much admin work, logistic work. The quoting is so much easier. I can do it from my phone. That was something that was really annoying before. Like I would get a request in the middle of the day, but I would be at an event and I'm like, man, I can't get back to this person for like 4 or 5 hours. And I knew that was hurting us. And now like with using Flash Quotes on my phone, I can get back to that person really quickly. And just all those little things, like that's where it adds up to making a huge difference for us. So they didn't pay me to say any of this. This is very organic. Yeah. I've told Zach and Justin and Daniel, who's not here today, like how much it's really had an effect on not just our business, but us personally. And so we're really grateful for you guys and the time that you've spent building this.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, man. I mean, the stories like that are what keep us going and what keep us motivated and excited to keep making the product better and signing more people up. So yeah, you said it beautifully. If you're listening to this and you want 15 hours back and you're not on Flash Quotes, it's time to talk to Justin. Go to flashquotes.com and sign up for free or book a demo. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, and you also referred Callie to us from Joy Pops, who we've also had on, which is such a perfect fit, I think, and we're excited to break into other industries, right? Mobile bar, frozen treats, ice cream caterers. Oh, yeah. What was that like? Do you want to share kind of how that story unfolded and your connection to Callie?
Yeah, so my wife met Callie a few years ago before we started Canyons. My wife, Maddie, was working at a local coffee shop and Callie worked there. I think just seasonally. She was running her business, but her business is pretty seasonal. And so they worked together. That's how they met as baristas. And then Maddie kind of shared our dream of starting this coffee cart. And then fast forward to literally just a few months ago, Callie reached out to Maddie and said like, hey, I know Steven, he does web design, but also like I'm interested in what you guys are doing for like getting clients. She had seen our website and seen Flash Quotes, but didn't really know how that worked. And so, yeah, she just came into the coffee shop here and asked me like, well, what are you guys doing? And can you help me with this? And can you help me with that? And it just turned into like 30 minutes of me showing her Flash Quotes. And I just remember being like, and it does this. And guess what? Like it also does this for you. And she just kept freaking out. Like I need all of these things, and I think pretty much immediately she signed up. And from everything I've heard from her, and I watched the episode you guys had her on, I think it's also been a huge game changer, just like freeing up her time personally. And so it's really cool because we're not direct competitors. Like there is some crossover. We've worked with the same clients at times, but it doesn't feel like, oh man, I can't help you because that's going to take away from what we're doing. And so it's cool to just help each other out and say like, hey, this is going to make your life a lot easier. And yeah, I think it's working out really well for her as well, even though she's not in the coffee space.
Yeah, that's cool. It is rare that like, I don't know how many Flash Quotes users have like met in person. It's a small number. Definitely a small number.
We need to have a conference. Let's all unite. Let's hang out
Yeah.
in Denver or Vail or something.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Cool. And then what does the future hold for Canyons? With the coffee shop, with the catering branch, what's the vision for, the rest of 2025 and into 2026?
Yeah, I think we're really focused on growing the coffee shop and getting it to a sustainable place. Like 2022, we started out, 2023, we grew to 2 carts. 2024, we opened the coffee shop. And then this year we had a baby. And so I was telling someone today, like, okay, it's time to like buckle down and focus on what we've got, maximize it. Yeah, definitely. We're trying to grow the coffee shop here, and not that we don't have other dreams. Like we've always been dreamers, and maybe a few years down the road, like entertaining the idea of having another location or something like that. But right now we're trying to just be in a healthy place. And I would love to see definitely growth on the catering side going into 2026, because I think we have a team in place where we can make that happen. But yeah, I'm not going to like lie to you and be like, oh man, we're going for 4 carts and 3 coffee shops and all that. I think we're just trying to be in a healthy spot right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like that's a core value to you. And I'm curious, like how you, like for right now, as we sit here, we're recording on September 9th, 2025. We're going into what's going to be your busy season, certainly on the catering side. Almost all coffee caterers we see, they do like more than half of their events sometimes in September through December. So the catering is going to be busy. The coffee shop is growing, and you've got a new little baby to think about. So how are you going to stay sane? How are you going to try and make sure that you get through this season and in the best way that you can?
Yeah, I think even just within the past few months, we've really focused on building our team. And so I really like the team that we have now. I think everyone understands the vision and they mesh really well together. So that is a huge piece of it. And then getting out of operations as much as possible is a big piece of it as well. And so, yeah, I mean, literally going back to flash quotes, like those different features have not just given me some sanity back, but also made it easier for other people to execute the events without me. And so just making sure that they have everything they need to pull off an event well. And I feel like that's where we're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so much of it comes down to people and then in delegating and whatnot. But yeah, that is a core value for us, to just do things that are sustainable for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. This is our busy season. The falls always gets really crazy. And so, yeah, if would probably say, oh, like even then you're still working a little bit too much. And so just trying to be cognizant of like how many hours in the week are we actually putting into this, and what are the essential things that we need to be doing, and some of those non-essential, saying like, hey, that can wait until next week or next month,
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, because I think what we hear a lot from people, from business owners that are kind of in your shoes, is that, okay, I'm learning to delegate, I'm hiring great people. That's a core skill. That's what makes this possible to continue to grow. The easiest part usually is finding baristas to serve the coffee and go to the events and execute the events, and that's almost always the first thing that people start delegating. But eventually you may want to delegate more, right? It's different for everybody, but you may want to delegate more of the operations or the sourcing of supply or the coordination, or the coordination and logistics, or the cart maintenance or whatever. But it's different for everyone. And I'm just curious what you think, like in your future state, what would it, if you were just doing the things that you're like awesome at and you love doing, and same for your wife, like what would your roles be? And then what would you have kind of ideally hired or outsourced to other people in your team to do the stuff that's not as fun or fulfilling for you?
Yeah, I think by now I've probably gone to over 500 events, and I would love to get to a place where that's not necessary, and just to say like, oh, I want to go see that client. I have a good relationship with them, or I miss them or whatever, but that's just because I want to do that. But I would say over 90% of the time, if I could have someone else executing the events, that would be ideal. I love coaching and teaching. So I love being here with our team and really pouring into them and seeing them connect with customers. And so that would be my main focus. And then I really enjoy marketing and design. And so some of that stuff most of that I would continue to do as well, just because I enjoy it. But I don't want to have to be like, oh, if I don't stand behind this cart and make coffee, or if I don't stand behind the bar, behind the register, then things fall apart. I don't want that to be the future reality within the next maybe 2 years, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just always curious to hear, how people are thinking about getting to that point, because that is kind of the dream of of being a business owner, right? Is eventually you make your own job of just the parts that you love to do and you feel like you're great at, and you kind of bring people around you to support and everything else. That's something, Justin, that I think you're extraordinary at. Maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but from my perspective, watching you run Good Heart Coffee, you've masterfully kind of worked yourself out of all the things that you don't want to be doing and just created this very unique role for yourself, which is like hiring and managing great people, and then like tinkering with 3D printers and figuring out like how to tweak your carts and make them, and like work in your welding shop and play with physical tools. So that seems to be what you love, and seems to be what you've like kind of whittled your responsibilities down to, which I think is really cool. Oh, you're muted, Justin.
It's a little of both where, you do get to, it's like you do get to hopefully return to the things you love most, but there's always that piece of like, also the hardest problems will always trickle up to you as well. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, but I love it. I mean, honestly, I really do love, I call it warehouse troll mode. Like, I love being in the workshop. I love working on carts, building carts, designing, iterating, prototyping different pieces and accessories like that. I think that just, I grew up doing that stuff. You work in construction with my dad and grew up on a farm. Like I do like working with my hands, and that is such a core piece of coffee catering. I mean, you're out there, you're getting dirty, and that's how all great coffee catering businesses are born. It's like usually with the owner operator in the trenches, and yeah, it's cool to be able to do that. Finally, Steven, what would you say to those people who do want to use catering to eventually open their own coffee shop?
I think like for us, it was a bit of a unique situation. It happened faster than we thought it would, to be honest with you. I would say get your catering operation to a very strong place, because I'll just speak from our personal experience. That's what has sustained us through the first year of having a coffee shop. Like, just to keep it real with everyone out there, had we not continued to cater, that revenue that was sustaining us, and we wouldn't have made it through our first year, because it's not like we had this huge influx of capital to keep us going. And so I would say really build it up to a place where it's healthy and it's working on its own. It's not like, it could be a fully functioning business. You don't need the coffee shop. And then when you feel like, hey, we're there, then open the coffee shop, and you're going to feel a lot more sane through that first year, however many years of having a coffee shop, because you can continue to run your catering operation alongside of it. And so that's what I would coach people. We probably even went too quickly. Like, as soon as we had the opportunity, we were like, this is what we wanted, so why wouldn't we jump on it? And then in hindsight, like, it's easy to learn the lesson later, but it was like, we probably should have even built our catering up to 3 or 4 carts. And then the shop would really not be much of a burden initially. So that would be my biggest advice to people that are trying to get to that point.
Do you have a realistic like rule of thumb or advice for people on like how long, if they make that jump, how long should they expect the coffee shop to operate at a loss, basically, that needs to be funded by the catering or some other source of revenue? Yeah,
I remember telling like a couple different people, we're opening a coffee shop. It's going to be awesome. We told the guy who owns the roasting company we work with, and he has 3 coffee shops. And I was like, it was like this moment all over again. Like I was telling Justin, where I went to the owner of 3 Pines, and it was actually a little bit deflating. I was like, yeah, Thomas, we're opening this coffee shop. And he was like, oh man, like he felt almost bad for us. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? He's like, it's going to be 3 to 5 years, just so you know. Like, it's going to be 3 to 5 years. And I was like, being an entrepreneur, you have to be crazy enough to not like believe what everyone else is saying and say like, no, I know that I can do this, right? You have to be just crazy enough. So when he said 3 to 5 years, I was like, no way. And the past 6 months, I've been telling everyone like 3 to 5 years. Yeah. So it's been 18 months for us. And I think like 3 years is pretty realistic. If we had opened in more of a downtown setting, I think within 18 months, you could be crushing it. But we wanted to be closer to home. So we're more of a like a suburban setting. But I would say safely like 2 years. And that's just being realistic.
And is that because of the big upfront expenditures or is it just because of like, it just takes that long to get repeat customers and get awareness and get traffic in the door, or what, what?
I think it's both. I think, yeah, growing that repeat clientele, like establishing in the community, hey, we're here for good. Like, this is what we're doing. Are you going to buy into this? People, it takes them a long time to shift from whatever coffee experience they were having to say like, I trust you guys with this daily ritual. I'm going to spend my money here. And that's just, I don't think there's any shortcuts to that. I think that's a trust journey for people. It just takes time, no matter how good your marketing is. And then, yeah, like the capital that we had, like the loans and whatnot, we had to take, you're paying those back. And so that's eating into your revenue, your profit every month. So it's, for at least in our case, it's both of those things.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you sharing all that, because this will be a good episode for people to point people to when they say like, I think I want to start a coffee shop, and oftentimes Justin and I are on those calls and we're like, do you you really know what you're getting in for? So like you've been very transparent, and I think it's awesome that despite all that, you still are doing it and you're excited about it and you want to be there for decades, and you're thinking long term, which is what I think is required to be successful. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool, man. Where can this has been great. Tons of good stuff in this one. We'll wrap it up here, but where can people follow you and Canyons if they want to see what you guys are up to?
Yeah, everything is, so our website is canyons.coffee, and every handle that we have is also canyons.coffee. So you can find us that way.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Everyone, if you stayed this long, please subscribe and drop us a comment, because we're getting a lot of views and no one actually subscribes to our YouTube. So hit the subscribe button. You'll get notified as soon as we drop new episodes. We're really kind of doubling down on the podcast and trying to get more awesome guests like Steven. So you can follow us on YouTube, on Instagram, and get all this good stuff, as well as actually our newsletter is new as well. So every Thursday we're now sending out an email with kind of summarizing the tips that we're picking up on the podcast. So if you're in the event business, you want a little 500-word snippet in your inbox every week with some tips, go to flashquotes.com/newsletter and you can sign up for free there. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Steven. Great to see you. We'll catch you later.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye.